Hi, everyone. Cecilia Lee from ISSIP. Today, we have Anthony Boccanfuso joining us. He's currently serving CEO role for UIDP. Could you introduce yourself to the ISSIP community, Anthony?
Absolutely. Yes. So my name is Tony Boccanfuso. I'm president and CEO of UIDP, which is a membership organization of large companies and universities from around the world. And we seek to identify ways to increase the value proposition from those partnerships. On a personal level, I'm a PhD chemist by training, but I've worked in government, the private sector, and the academy over the last 30 plus years.
That's amazing, Anthony. So I know that you have amazing career in both the industry and then, in academia, like working closely with the academia. From your point of view, what is the challenge in order to build or grow as a T-shaped practitioners at the intersection of academia and industry?
Right. So, I think if we look, most individuals who graduate from college, either at the graduate or undergraduate level, are not going to wind up working it as an academic. They're going to go and work in industry, some aspect, large companies or small companies. That's especially true even at the graduate level where, many individuals may seek to have an academic career, but ultimately wind up working in industry. And so, you mentioned T-shaped professionals. That's certainly something that, we've had an interest in. We did a workshop with a number of institutions, including IBM and Michigan State a number of years ago at the National Academies in Washington, D.C. in the United States to talk about T-shaped individuals. And it's a topic that certainly is of importance. The number one technology transfer from universities to companies is not licenses for technology, but it's really individuals who go and work after they've been educated and graduate from a university or college, and then ultimately go work in industry.
Okay. And from your point of view, what is the current gap, in terms of like future generations, especially young graduates coming out of university and then try to look for a new first job? When it comes to STEM area, there are a lot of jobs out there, but then still we get to see some gaps. From your point of view, what is the biggest gap between the university and industry?
Yeah, well, I don't know that I'll be breaking, much new ground here. What I do see among many companies, and not all companies, is less of a focus on degree attainment and more on skills attainment. And so, I graduated from college in 1983, almost 40 years ago, and having, a piece of paper that said you had achieved this by taking 128 semester hours was what mattered. And where we are today, I think, is a little different. Many of the companies in Silicon Valley or technology companies are much more focused on, do you have the requisite skills to help the company today? And so, and I'll just give you a little anecdote. We hosted a workshop for the National Science Foundation about 8 years ago. And there was a representative from one of the large technology companies in the Valley and a bunch of deans of computer science and engineering there. And she made the point that if they have a summer intern and they're really good and they're ready, that they'll just offer them a job, that they don't really care about degree completion. And the academics were really taken aback by that. They felt like, it just was antithetical to their perspective, which once again, I think for someone like myself who graduated from college 40 years ago, that would not have been common. But I think there's a much greater focus now on skills attainment than there is on degree completion.
Does it mean that academic institutions are not good at preparing students with the adequate skills for the future jobs?
Well, I don't want to go that far and be that bold. You certainly hear about a lot of companies making that comment or saying that when they hire people, they need to provide them additional training to be ready for the job. Mm-hmm. And so, I think there is still a gap, but there's some really good things happening now. You're seeing in some areas where companies are helping develop curriculum to help prepare students for jobs. we've been talking about colleges and universities, but in the United States, the role of technical schools or two-year colleges, community colleges, is taking on a much bigger role. And I don't think we really know where all this is going to work out. I think we're at we're still in a point of uncertainty,
Yeah.
but I think there's a role for community colleges in this educational attainment ecosystem, certainly four-year schools, master's, PhD level schools. And I do see a convergence of company interests with universities preparing students for careers, because there's I think a little bit more focus now on ensuring that students who graduate from institutions are employed. That's a metric that's followed, right? And you don't want to be a university that has a low hire rate. So it's a little bit market driven, more probably than it was in the past. And you can still find faculty members who will say, well, we don't prepare students for jobs. We train them to learn and think critically. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's just we're also seeing a complement to that, which is really preparing people so that they are employable. And I would argue there's not as much of a gap between the two. Problem solving skills, communication skills, the things we talked about on T-shaped, are really important for anybody, regardless of their discipline.
Exactly. Absolutely. I can agree with you more. And also, as somebody who did a PhD and they're working in industry right now, I think that I definitely apply what I've gained from my PhD in my industry and work as well. So definitely. And going back to your comments on, the skills for the young graduates, as a lot of companies are focusing on skills rather than credentials, does it mean that a lot of universities, especially top universities, they charge enormous fees to students? Probably they're losing, I don't know. I mean, what is their role in the future?
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting to, once again, if we could time travel to, 50 years from now, and really look at this. I think if you look at the landscape of higher education, I think everybody realizes that there's an opportunity for positive disruption. There are a lot of lessons learned from, I think, the COVID experience where classes were taken virtually. And I think you're going to see a lot of more customized educational approaches for individuals. And you're going to see, I don't know if it's, companies or consultants or whatever, but I think you're going to, or online AI type activities where individual students will be given customized career pathways, in terms of what they do. I do think that the large state schools and the elite institutions are going to continue to grow and be stronger. I mean, you look at schools that are flagship universities or in the US or even abroad, and they're getting bigger. And then there are institutions that have a dedicated mission. They're a historically Black college and university, or a Hispanic serving institution, or they're an engineering focused school. I think they'll be okay. I do think there are a lot of schools in the middle that are trying to figure out their place in the innovation ecosystem, right? And I say this to be a little provocative, but I think it's important. If you're in an institution in leadership and you were to ask yourself, if our institution was to go away tomorrow, would the state of higher education be dramatically impacted in our community or in our state or in our region? And if you don't have a strong answer yes to that, then you need, I think, to really think long and hard about what your role is and what you're trying to do, because a lot of schools have just traditionally banked on, well, we're in this community, over half of our students come from this community. And so they've just kind of relied upon that. And I'm not sure in going forward that that's going to be a big enough motivation. So I don't want to say I'm concerned, but I do see this continuing concentration of assets and wealth and interest in the large institutions that are, doing very well.
Hmm.
And then I would say the kind of the elite private schools, and the ones that are in the middle, I wonder what's going to happen to them. Like I said, if we had a time portal and go forward 50 years, it'd be very interesting to see where all this turns out.
I see. That's an interesting answer. Cool. And also, when it comes to T-shaped professionals, what do you think, from your point of view, what are the most important skills to develop in order to become a T-shaped professional?
Great. Yeah, it's a great question. So, we run I run a nonprofit here based in the United States. We have about 20 employees. And when I look also with people I collaborate with, outside of a few core disciplines, most people are not using their degree, their discipline of their degree to do their job. If you're in events management, or if you're in program management, or you're doing something else, you're not really using your your degree. Now, that's obviously if you're in like an architecture or accounting, you are. But there are many individuals like lawyers. Most people with law degrees in the United States don't practice law. They're doing something else.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so if you look, there's so much, there's so many skills, going back to the skills attainment, which is what we what I talked about with T-shaped individuals. The ability to effectively write. So if I could wave my magic wand, I think every college student, every high school student should take classes on technical writing. It's not beautiful prose. There's nothing wrong with beautiful prose, but for most of us in the world, you need to write concise memos that people can quickly understand what you're trying to convey. And it's not a skill that's well taught, and most students don't take technical writing. So, I think, and I have 3 children that have gone through college, and I've implored all of them to take technical writing. So to me,
Oh, wow.
technical writing is a big deal. I also think we've decreased our ability to engage in person. So the other type of communication skill, right? So can you hold a conversation with somebody in person? Do you know how to use a phone? It's shocking to me the number of young people that are aggressive in their opposition to picking up the phone to call somebody. And that's a really important skill. So, I think the verbal and written communication skills are really paramount. And then solving problems. I think regardless of your industry, regardless of where you are in the world, solving problems is what matters. Identification of problems, that's not really a skill. That's just, it's not a valuable skill. Let me put it that way. It's like if, you own a house and your sink is leaking water on the floor, right? And someone comes in and says, well, your sink is leaking. What? Can you fix it? That's what matters, right? So understanding how to problem solve is extremely important. And so I think that's a skill. Once again, it's not related to organic chemistry or inorganic chemistry or physical chemistry. Now, as you're doing your PhD work, and you mentioned this, what I learned during my PhD work was solving problems. So I used a lot of vacuum gas lines, and they would break, and I had to learn how to blow glass, right, and fix gas lines, because if I wanted to be able to do my experiments, I couldn't rely upon the glass blower who worked 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so, solving problems is such an important skill. And the way you get better at that is through practice. Just like writing, it's practice. So I think those are really important skills that we think about. So to me, written, verbal communications, and then not problem identification, but problem solving.
Problem solving. Gotcha. So it sounds like communication skills are also part of the problem solving skills. And then from your point of view, do you think that the future generation should focus on, the developing strong soft skills rather than hard skills, which you can just gain through formal education?
Yeah, well, it's according. I mean, if you want to work at certain companies, you're going to have to demonstrate a high level of competency in the technical areas. So, this is the challenge, right? This is why it's T, not a dash,
Definitely, definitely.
right?
Yeah.
And so, I think you need to pursue both of those. Um, I I think for a lot of individuals, though, the technical skills are once again are not universally translated from your degree to your job,
Hmm.
whereas the T-shaped skills are. So I don't care what you do in terms of a job, the overwhelming number of jobs out there require you to be able to communicate and write effectively. Once again, it's not beautiful prose, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not. You need to write concise memos that people can share and understand, and quickly get to the point, because we all have very short attention spans. People like myself, we literally I get hundreds of emails a day. And so if I don't read pretty soon in the message what you're trying to ask me or convey, it's probably not gonna, I'm not gonna read it. So I think these are all really important things that that students should be thinking about, because while you might major in chemistry or math or biology or political science, there's a high likelihood that you're not going to use those skills
Hmm.
in terms of the technical aspects,
Right, right.
but you're going to use the T-shaped skills that were
Yeah.
developed, the problem solving skills, the communication skills, etc. So
Definitely, completely makes sense. I know that we only have about 10 minutes left, because I know that you need to go very soon with another meeting.
yes,
Before we close the call, do you have any suggestions or advice to the ISSIP?
yeah. So I think ISSIP has certainly done great work in advancing service science and thinking about how companies, universities, and government can converge to work on these issues. I think the service economy, service sciences are taking on a much bigger role, and I think we need to continue to pay a lot of attention to it, because it impacts so much in terms of how we as a world are able to address challenges that we face.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us, Anthony.
Absolutely. You take care, Cecilia.
Take care. Bye.